Let's jump right into this explainer. Today, we're stepping into what is essentially a grimdark Gothic fable. It's a deeply psychological story, really, about the rigid fortresses we build inside our own minds to lock away the chaotic, primeval forces of the cosmos. It's a tale about architecture, both literal and existential. I am the sum of all things your gasket cannot contain, the chaotic brilliance and the impartial horror. Man, just listen to how chilling that declaration is. That's spoken by the dragon, this ancient, menacing figure in our story. And it immediately sets up the core mythic tension we're dealing with today, that desperate, eternal conflict between the sterile safety of our constructed realities and the wild, terrifying unknown of the outside. Act 1. The Architecture of Denial. So our story kicks off in the High Cathedral, but we're not talking about a building of stone and mortar here. This cathedral is the human superego. It's a psychic fortress designed specifically to protect us from the outside world, perfectly setting up our central conflict. Inside the cathedral, you have the philosopher's rigid, predictable reality, what the text calls the world of arrangements. This is a realm of Apollonian precision, cold logic, and very strict approved civic hours. But outside? Outside is the Dionysian night, its primeval chaos, its alchemical imagination. It's the raw, unbound source of life itself, constantly threatening that fragile order. Now, inside this fortress sits the philosopher, just desperately performing his spiritual defense. He's trapped in this iron cage of slave morality, basically reciting cold, mechanical axioms in an endless loop. He's using these strict rules, bought with the currency of absolute obedience, as a literal wall of words. Why? Just to muffle the roaring, terrifying sound of the void outside. Act 2. The Jester's Mockery. Out in the Dionysian night, scaling the very walls of this fortress, is the jester, the unbridled shadow unleashed. He peers right through the stained glass at the cowering philosopher and just brutally mocks his rigid mechanical axioms. You can almost hear him laughing. You really think your formulas save you? He points at the lords inside, sipping their wine of consequence, and yells, "Listen to the Dionysian music vibrating through your precious masonry. Your logic, your laws, they're nothing but strings I pluck to lead you all into the unlegislated night." And sure enough, back inside, the cathedral's stone actually begins to groan under this immense cosmic pressure. But the philosopher's reaction is so telling. He simply opens his ledger and writes down the terrifying vibrations as structural settling. It's a brilliant psychological point, right? It shows exactly how the human ego desperately slaps boring, clinical euphemisms onto terrifying truths, just so we don't actually have to face them. Act 3. The Repressed Central Wound. As we dig deeper, we find out the cathedral actually has a central wound, a foundational flaw that happened exactly 20 years ago. There was a student, and she was entirely unique because she had both the Apollonian precision to navigate the rigid cathedral and the alchemical imagination to actually hear the music of the source. She was the one true bridge between these totally incompatible worlds. But then, she asked the philosopher an unanswerable question, one that completely exposed the incompleteness of his entire logical system. So, what does he do? Instead of admitting his system was flawed, the philosopher dismisses her inquiry as premature just to protect his own fragile ego. The student ends up walking away, completely shattering the bridge between the worlds forever. And that unanswerable question? The philosopher locked it away in a heavy vault. So the vault doesn't actually hold some grand, magical, cosmic secret. It just holds his repressed shame and her unanswered question. Act 4. Turning the 7 Tumblers. Eventually, the immense, crushing pressure of this repressed truth forces the philosopher to face the structural heart of his reality. The mechanics of his denial finally start to fail. The sequence totally groans at the 5th tumbler, the one stating, "The sufficient does not require the dragon." He suddenly realizes his logic is entirely hollow without its forgotten origin. The 6th tumbler forces him to finally acknowledge the student and the bridge he refused to cross. The gears are literally screaming under the weight of this denial. And then comes the 7th tumbler. It doesn't give a satisfying mechanical click of certainty. Instead, it asks the philosopher one haunting, ultimate question. Has what I built been enough to live inside? For the first time in decades, his mechanical recitation stops. Dead silence falls over the cathedral. The philosopher utters a single word of devastating truth. No. He falls to his knees. In that exact moment, he admits to himself that his entire life's work, all his safety, all his airtight logic, is nothing but a beautiful, hollow tomb. And with that single admission, the vaulted certainty of his reality just dissolves into dust. From the ruins of that opened vault emerges the dragon, the prima materia. This isn't the enemy. This is the forgotten origin of the entire system. It is a sheer force of impartial brilliance, the essential, unclassified fire that predated all of human logic. It's the raw, chaotic material from which everything was originally built. As the dragon uncoils from the masonry, it doesn't attack. The exchange here is absolutely crucial. The dragon speaks directly to the trembling philosopher, demanding psychic integration. It hisses, "I am what you put in the vault when the gasket was finished." The philosopher, terrified, stammers out, "Are you here to destroy my order?" And the dragon simply replies, "I am the fire that forged it. I require no worship, only acknowledgement." It literally forces the philosopher to stare right into the eyes of his own repressed spirit. Act 5, the 18th variation. This brings us to a radical inversion of existential architecture. The philosopher shifts to an architecture of the inner fire. It's a practice of devotion without possession. So instead of trying to lock the dragon out, he starts building his reality around the dragon's fire. He finally realizes that the cold stone wall he leaned against for 20 years was always a door. And the key to his liberation? It was always sitting right there, warm inside his own chest. He has finally truly integrated his living spirit. Meanwhile, high above the cathedral, the jester has reached the absolute peak, and here we witness the mythic dithyramb of the unlegislated night. The great star speaks its terrifying truth to the ascending jester, saying, "I shine upon the tyrant and the saint with the same precise impartiality. The cathedral is but a footstool for my indifferent light." This great star is Abraxas. If we connect this to the philosophies of Carl Jung and Friedrich Nietzsche, the star is the cosmic monster of pure, indifferent effect. It's a brilliant, impartial horror that simply does not care one bit about human morality. It exists so far beyond our fragile, constructed concepts of good and evil. So, the jester reaches the highest spire, but he doesn't conquer the cathedral. Instead, he uses the absolute peak of human morality and structure as a mere footstool, a launching pad. In a final Faustian frenzy, his human identity just shatters under the star's indifferent light. He leaps into the unlegislated night, dissolving completely into the cosmic self. Which leaves us with a pretty profound reflection to end on. Think about your own psychic fortresses. Think about the walls you've built in your own life to keep the chaos out. Are you building a structure to integrate your inner fire, or are you just constructing a beautiful tomb to hide from the dark? Take that question with you.